Former Statistician General Pali Lehohla has pleaded with National Treasury not to punish South Africans because of Eskom's debt. This after Treasury released an explanatory note on the Eskom debt relief strategy. It outlines how government intends to improve the books of the ailing power utility. Lehohla insists the unbundling of Eskom is not being led by scientists. He's now joining us virtually from Pretoria. Thank you so much for your time this evening, former Statistician General. You wrote this open letter that I read on Independent, the IOL website, and you do not pull any punches there. You're calling on National Treasury not to burden ordinary citizens with Eskom debt, and that it comes as a result of what you call, quote, political accountancy and not decisions led by science. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is the call for interrogating what Eskom may need and a solution being proffered as one where the manufacturers would be called to run Eskom and, of course, hand it over, is simply ludicrous. Because Eskom for almost 88 years, probably nine decades, has been running without that kind of situation. The people who have been running Eskom were competent and Eskom was performing. To go out on tender to establish whether Eskom should be run by the people who manufactured the parts is simply ludicrous. What do you expect? They see business, they'll come. And they'll find that they need those people that are working on parts. Of course, there was the writer who has been running Eskom for 3 years, and he has plunged us into this load shedding. In the last month or so, that load shedding has been reversed. Why? Because there were two simple things that are anchored in engineering that were recommended by, amongst others, the former CEO of Eskom, Marcelle and Marocha, which was run the maintenance of the fleet, ensure that it is maintained, and ensure that we keep 10% for regular maintenance and 10% for unexpected maintenance. And that now has happened. And Mpoma Kwana said that we have made sure that the power stations are run by power managers. They have removed the COO, and within a very short space of time, we see increased EAF. Would that really need the manufacturer to come and run Eskom? Not at all. Yet the Treasury has gone ahead to speculate on that possibility. When people who are in accounting, who count money, come into engineering without any engineering knowledge, particularly of power stations, this is what you get.
Now
and it should not be tolerated.
Now, you retired as Statistician General in 2017. We did not end up where we are in terms of our power crisis overnight. We had problems even back in the time when you were still in office. What did you make of the decision-making processes and the way that decisions were being made in terms of the power crisis back then? What did you make of how those decisions were being made and the involvement between the scientists on the Eskom side and the politicians?
Well, I think it's very clear, and President Mbeki accepted that they didn't listen to the scientists way back in 1994 when they said, at this rate at which we are going and the growth coming, we will not, will be short on electricity. And of course, they put in place by 2006 a program of a build-up of Eskom power stations, starting with Medupi and Kusile. And that program started, but obviously there were many other things that happened in those power stations. The key problem has come with the just energy transition. There's nothing just about that, and that's where the problem is. And President Ramaphosa has said, admitted that he was naive to have accepted that. Now that he has accepted that, we should actually put scientists and engineers and economists at Eskom to ensure that power is available. Particularly dismiss with the contempt it deserves that the power stations are old, which was perpetrated throughout by the Green Lobby. I have nothing against solar panels and all those things, but to try and disrupt a stable energy system because we are eager to please the West in the name of just energy transition. Let's remember where they left us. Once Russia blocked, or rather when the oil stopped going to Europe from Russia, they abandoned everything else they have been talking about. They went back to coal, including demanding our coal in South Africa. That's hypocrisy of the worst kind. It is a plot that we have sold a Trojan horse. It's good that President Ramaphosa realized that he admitted and accepted a Trojan horse. What we have to do is to ensure that we continue using our coal prudently. We continue to look at nuclear. And of course, we also look at the greens. But to shut down on a schedule coal power stations, including Komati with 1,000 megawatts, and then going back begging with a begging bowl to Botswana for 250 megawatts, it's absolutely stupid. Nobody in their right minds would do that kind of thing.
We saw
when they are not led by science, they'll do those stupid things.
We saw an electricity minister being appointed at the beginning of the year. He gave another briefing over the weekend and has pointed to the fact that they've been able to reduce the stages of load shedding. He was ready with all his numbers and seems to be on top of this new portfolio. But at the time of his appointment, there were major questions being asked about why we needed another portfolio being created just to look at the power crisis when we had portfolios in the cabinet within which electricity in South Africa was supposed to be managed. Did you think the appointment of the electricity minister was necessary, especially if I ask you to put on your hat of a numbers person that was your job up until 2017? And why do you think that it looks like this appointment has worked?
Well, government created a crisis for itself. And so that they must be seen to be doing something, they have to appoint an energy minister, or rather an electricity minister. That's absolutely nonsensical. It doesn't actually, it was not necessary. We have an energy minister who should be on top of his game. We have an Eskom that must have an executive that is on top of its game. We are so fond of putting structures on top of structures. That is a superfluous portfolio of an electricity minister. Absolutely unnecessary. But of course, it is there. That's a political decision that has been made. It's devoid of the science I'm talking about. There was never an electricity minister, and Eskom was performing very well under the energy minister. Of course, when you put a minister of energy and a minister of enterprises responsible for Eskom, you create confusion. And that's where the confusion starts. And of course, you pile it up on top with an electricity minister. Absolutely nonsensical. But when you give the engineers and the economists the right to run an energy system, they'll run it efficiently under the supervision of the energy minister. An electricity minister is just superfluous. Of course, he's given that responsibility, he can't refuse it, and he's doing his best. But it's absolutely unnecessary.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. As always, the former Statistician General Pali Lehohla joining us virtually from Pretoria, wrapped up all nice and warm on a chilly winter's night in Gauteng.